The Edifice Complex podcast is brought to you by DCM, the drawing specialists, Blue Rhythm commissioning software, and Sensor Suite, the future of intelligent buildings.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex, the property design and development podcast. Let your hosts Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean keep you up with who is innovating and doing great work, perspective on the adjacent possible, and challenges to the status quo.
Welcome to the Edifice Complex. I'm Robert Bean, your co-host and unofficial mediator, here again with my colleague, official agitator. You're officially an agitator, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Friend and Yoda have most everything to do with buildings, Mr. Adam Muggleton. Say hello, Sir Yoda.
Hello. Do you know what I've been trying to work out? Is Yoda an agitator? I hope so. I mean, he's a rebel, right?
A total rebel.
Total rebel, yeah. Just so
He accepts no excuses for anything.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, yeah. Agitator, man. You cannot accept that. So we're going to have a talk. We're talking today to, some would say, a pillar of the commissioning establishment. So let's get into it.
Yeah, well, so our pillar then today, really, it speaks to our hearts as a field service engineer and at his core. Obtained a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Buffalo. As an associate partner at JB&B, working on mission-critical buildings such as educational, laboratory, healthcare, and LEED green buildings. Welcome to the show, Ryan Lee.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Adam. I don't know if I should be excited or scared with the agitation and the introduction. So, but I guess I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Ryan, you obviously work on a team that pulls together multiple disciplines. I mean, if there was ever a definition for cross-disciplinary engineering practice, you kind of represent that. Certainly one of the most important segments being commissioning. We're going to talk about that today. That's one of your passions and Adam's passions, and always has been on a radar screen of mine. That right away, working on a cross-disciplinary team means you're working with technical matters, you're working with project management matters, but you're also working with people skills, the soft skills. And if there ever was a lion's den, you're in it. Why?
It's I got to tell you, I've talked to a lot of people. Being in the position I'm in, the president of the BCxA, there's a lot of interesting things going on, but it's not often. In fact, it's super rare that anyone says this has anything to do with people. But that is my feeling. Commissioning is people. I mean, that's it, right? There's technical things that go along with it. There's codes, there's processes, there's things you need to understand. But at the end of the day, I think why I'm successful is because I'm much better with people than I am staring at books and looking at AutoCAD and, crunching out, math problems and stuff. Although I was pretty good at it, and therefore my guidance counselor said, you should do something with engineering. And I said, whatever, fine, I'll do it. But at the end of the day, I think really a lot of my success came around just interfacing with people, understanding that buildings go up with raw materials, with years and years of design and everything that else that goes into it, but people are still doing the install, right? Until the time that maybe in the future, a building by itself or in pods, in modular, pods will be dropped by drones. Maybe it happens, in my generation. It's possible. I'm still waiting for the Amazon packages to fly by my door. That hasn't happened yet. But right now it's really people. So I think commission is exciting. And I'm going to weave a lot of the Building Commissioning Association in here. And the reason why the BCA is so important in my mind is because it talks about whole building commissioning. It's not just talking about HVAC. It's not just talking about balancing or, maybe something else, but whole building. When I talk whole building, everyone immediately goes to building envelope, right? Because you got the mechanicals and then you got the envelope. And I know it's not necessarily the same in the Americas versus across the pond in some other places. But at the end of the day, the envelope is so important because you can do whatever you want on the mechanical systems. You're not designing, right, to heat and cool the outside. Right. So there has to be some layer of protection. But beyond just the envelope, there's so much more, especially now, right? You have smart buildings, you have low voltage, you have cyber. You think cyber doesn't affect commissioning and building systems, you're out of your minds, right? Especially if you're working with financial institutions and, you know, corporations that you know, if God forbid someone gets into their building and starts affecting the way that their data centers are operating, you know, that's a major problem. So that is coming up. So when I'm talking whole building commissioning, yeah, it's a people service, and you have to make sure that you understand everything that's going around in the building and everyone who's really touching all the ancillary parts.
Yeah, this, you know, you bring up the cyber stuff. Just for our listeners, here's just to give you an idea of the consequences. So in Canada, we have the National Research Council Institute for Research and Construction. Anyways, that's part of a big umbrella of databases. And a few years ago, when I think it was under the Harper government, they shut down funding for the institute. That was the first thing. And then right after that happened, they had a security breach in their data systems, and it shut the computer system down for almost 2 years. So between losing funding and shutting down the data systems for almost 2 years, that entire organization was out of commission.
Yep.
2 years. You think about the hundreds or thousands of people that were affected by that, and then also any security risks that were exposed during the security breach, right? So one element of commissioning in terms of cyber, man, like you want to throw a monkey wrench into something, that was it.
And even think now, the times of COVID, right? Everything is connected to the internet, the IoT, right? So you have all these different parts and parcels in your building. You can control your damper on one of your, you know, central air handling systems from your phone. So what if someone dials in and just shuts down the outside air to a system? Right. Yeah. By the way, I'm not going to say that's probably happening in a lot of buildings anyway, just not through cyber, but just because, and that's obviously what we're trying to do and fix with commissioning. But, you know, it's not just the financial impact. It's not just, you know, going down for a certain amount of time, or it could be anything. And so it's interesting, and I don't want to spend the whole time in this because I'm by no means a cyber expert. But all I'm saying is, as we go into the future, what does 2021 look like? And then the 5 years and the 10 years beyond, right? HVAC is kind of, you know, if you think 20 years ago, why do you even have to commission, right? You throw an air handling unit, a chiller, a boiler, whatever it is in a building, it works. It's like, you know, starting a car for the first time. You just drive it, right? But we know that that's not the case. And so it took a while to catch on. And so there's not a lot of commissioning providers that do the cyber commissioning and that do low voltage and IT and ringing out all the cables and all that stuff. But it's going to happen. I can guarantee you that. So we need to stay ahead of it.
You know, we're going to come back to this discussion, but just a quick step back. So you're sitting in high school, you know, grade 12, thinking about girls and cars and, you know, paying for your beer next Friday.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the beer, but yeah.
And then you end up in university, but then you end up with all these kinds of skills. So, like, where did that come from? Like, where did that your ethos come from? Was that your parents, or was it?
You know, to be quite honest, I'm like scientifically, I'm an introvert. Right. This is very difficult for me. I shouldn't say difficult. It was years and years of training in trying to make sure that I thought I was, you know, confident enough and able to kind of do these types of things. But I saw that as a differentiator. And so, no, I wasn't thinking about any of that in high school. In fact, like I said, guidance counselors were just like, math and science scores are high, go to engineering. And I said, all right. And then in Buffalo, New York, for those of you who know the area, very high, you know, big manufacturing kind of area, right? So I got placed, and I had a bunch of internships in Niagara Falls, which is right on the border of Canada, on the, you know, U.S. side. And I worked in manufacturing plants, building silicon carbide parts for cars. And I was in the quality assurance division, believe it or not, which maybe had some impact in going into commissioning. I have no idea. But I did that. And then, man, I graduated right before September 11th. So like there was nothing when I got back to New York and into Long Island, nothing available. Everything that I had, you know, ready to go, everything was rescinded. Right. That was another very dark time in our history. So waited around and then kind of got lucky with a commissioning firm. And I was there for 2 years and then went to JB&B, because after 2 years, I was like, who am I to say I know how a building works walking around when I don't really I never learned how to design anything. And I was giving the engineers a bunch of crap, for saying you don't know what you're doing. Meanwhile, I don't even know what they're doing. That's not fair, right? So I decided to join JB&B. I've been there for the last 18 years or so, and I split a bunch of time at the beginning, understanding design. Why do you size ductwork a certain way? Why do you size piping a certain way? Why does there need, what I was writing up fire dampers for 5 years. I finally realized what walls need fire dampers and where the retaining angles are supposed to go. And, in fact, now I get presentations on fire dampers, which is another story. But yeah, so that kind of gave me a good background. And then when I was doing design for a while, I just, like I said, I got tired of looking at the screens, just doing the calculations and stuff. I just wanted to get my hands dirty, my feet wet, and just walk around. And so it's kind of what I did. And then the more and more I got involved, locally within New York City at JB&B, then I started getting involved in the BCA because I wanted to know what others were doing around the country and around the rest of the world, in fact. And I started to realize that, while the East Coast, it's very much different from the West Coast in how we operate, it's still, again, very much a people thing. Processes are still the same. Quality assurance is still the same. And, learning from a lot of others. So it's been great. And I guess, lucky enough that they feel the same way about me and, now have the real good benefit of kind of leading the vision for this year.
Well, what's cool about that? Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
What's cool about that is you think about every day when you come to work, there's never the same day. Like, it's just your day every minute, every hour must change. So for those that are, listening to the podcast and you're thinking about your careers, I can't think of another one that's more dynamic than your job.
Yeah. There's days that I'm an absolute mess. I was in, I was literally at ground zero in New York City for like 10 years. Doing a lot of work down there, and then, other days just back at the office, working on different stuff. So it's really, the industry is great. Like I said, with commissioning, you could be in a 1 million square foot commercial office building one day. You can be in a Starbucks ceiling the next day. It's kind of cool. I'd rather more of the former and less of the latter, but it's all good.
Yeah, actually, you've touched on some really good points there, like the communication thing. Most engineers, I would argue, are introverts.
Yeah.
It's not natural. There's the occasional psychos like me, but most of them are not naturally like gregarious out there wanting to do the presentations, right?
Yep.
So this is the thing I talk about with commissioning people. There's a skill stack you need, right? So there has to be a fundamental engineering sort of college, university level type background there, right? And You've got to be reasonably solid in the fundamentals. But then you have a choice at that point to stay in that groove, and there's nothing wrong with that if you want to, right? But if you want to do other things, and commission is a good example of that, you've got to have the communication skills, the leadership skills, the multidisciplinary approach, right? You've got to stack all that up to do what you're doing, right? And then what does that give you? A great job with travel, variety. You could be, I have the same thing. So one day I'm in this big boardroom and you're talking around having these big conversations. Next day you're up to your neck in muck and you're thinking, how did that happen? But it's good, right? It's variety.
There was a guy, Peter Drucker, right?
Yeah.
He was a Viennese economist or business management consultant. And I remember reading I think it was his biography, actually, which was written, by the way, in his last days of his life. The guy came in and Peter was sick, but he visited his house. Anyways, long story short, Peter, at an early age in his life, adopted this philosophy. Every 4 years, I'm going to learn something new. And he did, and so if you start at 20 and you die at 80, that's a lot of knowledge. What you call, Adam, the stack.
Yeah, the skill stack.
Yeah, the skill stack. And in many ways, Ryan, when you think about your career and where you're going and, where you've been and what's happening in the future, it's all about that. It's all about stacking it up. And, and I would suggest that over a 4-year period, and Adam, you probably agree with this, that building technology is changing at such a high rate right now. I mean, we have already a good base. We know how buildings should be designed and we know how they should work and function, but with the new materials of construction, with the new methods of construction, with all of the IT stuff, all of that coming in, it's a dynamic field if there ever was one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
No, go.
I was going to say 4 years is not enough to be an expert because you need 10,000 hours, right? So maybe, an expert in nothing, but hopefully, a good mind with a lot of other things. And listen, there's so many ways we could go with this conversation. And Adam, it's funny what you mentioned. Like when we do hire, students out of college to go directly into commissioning. And that is a different animal because you have a condition that you were mentioning where you're literally in front of somebody that's not in the company, like almost right away. Right. Whether it doesn't matter whether it's a client or a developer or an architect or anyone or a contractor, right? It doesn't matter. So you start to realize that you need those people skills early on versus potentially other people in our field, right? In the AE side, on the consultant side, where you can, potentially not see another human being for years and just work on the computer. So it is a different mindset, but it's the same thing, right? We hire people from the Navy. We hire people that come in from, other types of, startup and tech companies. And it still is different, right? You may not, those individuals may have been excellent at the technical side, but need to learn kind of the communication side and the personal side. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a struggle, but it's a challenge for some. And, it's opportunity also for, like you were saying, to separate yourself in this industry because you're going to run into so many people. It's never a dull day for sure. Rarely get calls that say thank you. It's usually just calls of hey, by the way, you ever check this? Yeah, like 3 years ago, what happened? But again, it's all part of the industry, and I love it.
So before we talk about BCxA, I just want to signal something for sort of people early in their career here. I firmly believe that, and this skill set will be folded into commission associations like the BCxA. I read recently, someone's going, we're going to electrify the whole building, we're going to IoT it. Great, awesome. So first thing that came to mind for me is single point of failure there, right? So all of a sudden you need a super resilient electrical supply. I don't think such a thing exists, by the way, without a lot of money, because you need 100% redundancy at that point, right? And then you've got the IoT risk. So I believe firmly, if I was young in my career and I had the sort of fundamentals sort of somewhat under control, I would move into the IoT controls algorithm side of things and also have a real solid knowledge of electrical supply, provision, redundancy, single point of failure analysis. These things are going to become, the days of just like craning something on the roof, starting up, then going for lunch are just over. And that ship has sailed over the horizon. It's gone. People don't realize that, but that's where it is. So I actually think within the BCxA, 20 years from now, say, or even 10, there will be a discipline called, cyber commissioning or algorithm commissioning or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's kind of happening now on a couple fronts, but even on the data side, we've seen so many different things happening with digital twin. Are you familiar with digital twins?
Yeah.
So essentially that's going on a lot now on some of the larger projects where you're just grabbing all of this data and grabbing data is fine, but if it sits in an Excel sheet, it's not really helpful, right? But over time, plotting out what the building is doing, where they're spending their money, where they're spending their utility dollars, right? Should they be spending that many utility dollars? What's flagging out now? So just from that standpoint, it's really interesting. You talk about controls and all that stuff. So it's not just what's connected to the internet and the IoT and the cyber stuff, but also managing a building, being like an energy manager, an on-site energy manager doesn't necessarily, again, you need the human And I'm not saying you don't need the human, because the computers can do it, but the computers are giving you the information. Then you need to take that information and say, what am I going to do with this, right? Why is my electric so high, right, in the wintertime? What the hell is going on? So, well, unless you're electrifying your building, like you said, which is happening also, and then you'll have high, utility bills in the winter as well.
And what's going to happen? People are going to electrify, and one day there's going to be this disaster. Like, some people are going to lose a ton of money, and everyone's going to go, why was that a good idea? Because everyone was doing it.
I mean, I don't know, you could get into it now or later, but New York City, I mean, with all these local laws that they're pushing through, electrification is the way it's all going.
Great intentions could have some pretty dire consequences. If you're in risk management, alarm bells have to be going off in your head, right? If you've got business in New York at the moment.
Well, and it's geography related, right? And where are you getting your energy from? And is it combustion based? Is it hydro based? Where is it coming from? Let's take Vancouver, Adam, out in Canada on the West Coast, right? Major push for electrification, but all of their power generally is hydro.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a synergy there, and we've talked about exergy before. Those are all low exergy environments. You take a hydro source, put it into a building that's conditioned with heat pumps, with large surface area heat exchangers. It doesn't get any better than that, right? But if you've got an area that's serviced by combustion-based power generation, and everybody decides to buy a Tesla, you're
good luck with that.
That's a disaster. Like, that's just a disaster. And yet you got people, governments promoting electrification, get on electrical, not understanding the consequences of it.
Well, the intentions are good, though, right? The intentions are good, and the intention is that the grids are going to get greener too. So as you electrify, then in theory, right, the utilities have to, do their part as well. So it can't just be, I know I'm talking about buildings now, it can't just be the buildings going to electrification without the grid kind of catching up. So, the assumption is that all that happens. And listen, at some point, you have to start making these decisions. You can't just say, nah, it's not going to work, right? And we're starting to see that because, again, in New York City, interestingly enough, right, there's very stringent laws that are now giving deep penalties should you not abide by them. And the first one is coming up. I think it's either 2024 or 2025 when the penalties start. And then 2030, the real penalties start. And so for a while, this is already 2 years old in New York City. It came out in 2019. And so a lot of the owners and clients and developers were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen, how bad it was going to be, or is there going to be a change in the government and something happening, and holding out hope maybe for that. But so far that hasn't happened. Even with COVID, nothing has been relaxed, right? People thought maybe, I'm spending more energy, putting different filtration in and increasing my outside air. Now, it's only making things worse. Well, the reaction so far has been tough. Deal with it. And so I'm kind of proud of that. I think we're in a good place, and they're trying to do the right thing. And of course there's going to be hurdles, but everyone's got to do their part, and not, there's carve outs in the laws for, buying energy recs that have to come locally. And so, but there's only so many of those you can buy that exist right now. So that's still another option that some are considering. But at the end of the day, we're seeing people, model their building and say, what am I going to do? I
mean, for our international listeners, there's real kudos and a shout out here, because NYC are really, New York City's really led the way here. This has been groundbreaking stuff. Frankly, knowing I lived in NYC, worked there for a couple of years, knowing politics there, how this got through, I have no idea. Someone must have been asleep at the wheel, but it happened, right? And it's a reality. And I'll link in the show notes. I did a blog summarizing all that. I'll link into that.
Good.
So I want to talk about the BCA. So Jim's just set the scene here. When I started working in 1980, yes, old, right? There were no commissioning associations, right? So fast forward 40 years. I can't believe I just said that. There's too many. I did some research for a client a couple of years ago, and there were 16 certifications in the US alone. There's so many associations. It's like the goddamn Wild West. Everyone's in business for themselves, zigzagging across each other, right? So it's gone from nothing to like this salad of everything. And the problem is this. I was a property developer for a long time. The word commission never left my lips once in 7 years when I was doing that, by the way, which was fascinating. But that aside, the industry wants one association, one qualification. They want to know what is the PE, the license. So I want an engineer, I want a PE, or I want a PEng if you're in Canada, or a CEng in the UK, right? That is a thing. Everyone understands it. Just saying the word, people know exactly what it means, right? I think the commissioning industry needs that. So if I was boss hog for a week, I would force the BCA, ACG, everyone to merge and sort this out. Now, this is America. It's actually 50 countries now together with a bit of sticky tape, right? Everyone's in business for themselves. The states are trying to get a piece of it. The different engineering boards are trying to get a piece of it. So you are a pillar of the establishment, Brian. Fix this for
I
me.
like this. You guys treat me too well. Listen, where do I start? So the PE is a government issued like identification, right? Right now, these again are all kind of not-for-profits, or I believe most of them are not-for-profits, but they're not, run or I should say, fortunately, by the state or the federal government. I hear what you're saying, but you could buy a hamburger in 15 different places, right? You can buy it from Burger King, or you can buy it from a franchise restaurant, or you could buy it from a steakhouse. They're all different. They're all hamburgers, but they're very different. And what I'll say is the BCA stands alone because it is the only association that's purely dedicated to commissioning, bar none. There's nothing else. So there are other associations that are out there, and you've mentioned some of them. Some of them are tied into other associations. In fact, one of them, the acronym is an acronym of another acronym.
Yeah, I know the one you mean, ACG, right?
Yeah. Right. And listen, I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know. It's basically vested in a balancing company, so it's more on the mechanical side. Like I mentioned, BCA whole building commissioning is really what we're focusing on. There's other, you can go through ASHRAE and you can go through AEE, and they all have certifications. But again, the organization that holds those certifications, it's just a branch of many different things that they're offering. So with the BCA, what I will say is I wish there was a day that we were the only ones out there. I don't think that it's coming this year. I know that it's not coming this year. I don't know if it will ever come, but I feel confident, honestly, that just from the association side, right, we exist. Like our mission and vision is clear. It's on our website to drive the built environment to the highest levels of optimization. That is our mission. Our vision is a built environment worth inheriting. Again, like I think about my children and what they're going to do and where they're going to live and work. I want them to inherit an environment that they can live and prosper and move forward in. So that is my kind of duty and vision within the Building Commissioning Association, going to that. It's interesting, my mission and the vision and vision that I mentioned doesn't even say commissioning in it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's intentional because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. And that is our overall kind of, high level of vision. So we've grown in membership. It's certainly there's others that can say higher, but year after year, the last 2 or 3 years, our new members have been growing and growing, which is really good. And we're committed to advancing commissioning practices. In fact, we do ourselves a disservice. I will tell you, we do ourselves a major disservice is because we grow the industry, whether you're a member or not. Yeah. Right? We have people advocating out there, in ASHRAE, at the USGBC, in other places, just pushing the industry forward. And that's what we're committed to. And that's it, right? All the money that's driven through this nonprofit organization is literally just to support the membership with training opportunities, with best practices, with the conferences and stuff, but also on the advocacy side, right? Just pushing the industry forward. And fair or unfair, it's for everybody, right? So the reason it's in some of the codes, and I know, Adam, you had mentioned something about the Army Corps of Engineers. That's made one.
The reason I'm certified with ACG is I work and consult with a firm who do lots of Corps of Engineers work.
Right.
And you got two choices: you got to be NEB or ACG, or you're not on the job. It's very binary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we're not perfect. We're working on that, right? We'll try to get there, but that's why I feel it's a little bit different. And you mentioned the certifications. Oh, the certifications. So I was also years ago the president of the BCCB. So that's the Building Commissioning Certification Board. Right. That stands separate from the BCA, which means to get your CCP, which is a Certified Commissioning Professional, or your ACP, which is the Associate Commissioning Professional, that's kind of the step under, right? If you don't have all the years of experience and stuff. You do not need to be a member of the BCA. You don't. It's not tied to membership. So it's not a revenue thing. Again, we do it to our disservice just for the benefit of the actual, industry of commissioning. We want everybody to have an equal part and be able to take the test and get the certification. However, the certification is the only one out there that actually requires you to get recommendations and have the right amount of experience. Right. So a lot of the other tests out there, and it's not just ACG, it's also with, ASHRAE and the AEE, right? You can just sign up. You can take a class. I did it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I did it. I took a class for a couple of days and I took a test and, hopefully you pass. But with the CCP and the ACP, we do believe that, again, it's kind of the steakhouse versus the fast food. To go back to the reference, it's because of that experience, and it's because you need to be not just experienced, but be a project manager and be, referred to by a client as doing the right thing. So before you even take the test. Yeah. So again, not the only one, ain't going to be the only one for a while, but we do believe that it does stand alone.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously I asked you a question that's impossible to answer in a way, right? But I do like what BCA do in the way they are separating out. So there's a difference between certification and qualification, right? Which is sort of the path you've gone down, right? Correct. I know I've hit a hot button there for Robert. So there's that. And not all certifications are created equal, right? 2 days in a classroom and a nice certificate for your mum to be proud of is not the same as being qualified, right?
Right.
And that's the problem the industry has. So the industry has, and the problem is uneven qualifications, which is why, PE has a certain standard. There's a level you've got to get to, right? To get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'm sure we all run into it from time to time, just trying to bid on projects, right? Yeah. The assumption of the person in procurement that's hiring you to do a particular job assumes that everybody who's they're bidding out to, right, all 5 or 10, bidders are all offering the same level of service when it's not usually. And unfortunately, again, to our own disservice, we think it stands alone. But if you're looking at the CCP versus the, CBCP versus the CXP or whatever's out there, it's hard in a couple of letters to explain why it's different. So, hopefully maybe some of this conversation will certainly get me in trouble and get back to some other people. And then, we'll start to realize what the difference is.
Adam and I were joking on another, I think it was after a show, we were saying there's just 2 things a purchasing manager should not be in charge of. That is buying buildings and buying toilet paper.
Totally agree.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Can you find the drawing and supporting documents you need in less than a minute? Now you can with Echo. It's simple. Just type what you're looking for and press enter. Echo knows your building. Speak with a drawing specialist today. Ask about our special offer of painless onboarding plus 6 months free with Echo. Visit podcast.thedsoffer.com. That's podcast.thedsoffer.com.
And now, back to the show.
So given the sort of like Wild West nature of the business at the moment, right? Now, this is just how I think because I'm a psychopath, right? So if I'm you, I can't get them to merge with me, so I've got to be better than them. So I'm so objectively better, I put them out of business, right? This is business in general, right? So the question is, how does the BCA become the natural, obvious choice that even purchasing managers know, you know what, I've got to have that logo, not that logo?
You know, I think it's, and what I've been trying to do, and with the last president, Dan Farino, before me, when I was president-elect last year, what we've been trying to do is become more visible. To be quite honest, you know, Adam and Robert, I'm not even looking in the rearview mirror. I could care less what anyone else is doing. Honestly, that's kind of how I go about my day. That's what I've done in my career. You know what? Like, what I like to be better than everyone, sure, but I think I'm always trying to improve. We're always trying to improve.
Yeah.
I think by visibility, it will just tell the story by itself. So we're doing all these amazing things. We've been doing all these amazing things for years, and we haven't necessarily been out there. We haven't been doing these kinds of podcasts. We haven't been visibly available, you know, on the internet. Our website needs updating, some other things. But behind the scenes, you know, I mean, our people worked with the USGBC to get commissioning as a prerequisite. Right. It's also, you know, doing all these other things with training, everything we're doing. So, and the advocacy, like I mentioned. So I think if nothing else, the visibility will start to get, hopefully, people talking. It'll stand alone. I mean, ASHRAE is one of those, you know, household names. If you're in the architecture and engineering community, you just know it. I would love to hopefully get there. And that's the plan.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting, this morning, actually, I was a judge in a contest for buildings. I think there was 30 commercial buildings that were submitted in the contest, and I think something like 60 houses that were done, and it was all dwindled down. And when it was all said and done, we said to the organizers, you know, when you guys create these competitions, you need to have on those forms what method was the building commissioned to, what thermal comfort standard was the building in compliance with, what was the air quality standard, what was the energy standard, because all of these engineers and contractors that submit these into these contests, they all talk about, well, the building was efficient and everybody was comfortable, and it's just like a whole bunch of subjective shit, you know, like it's like your grandma could tell me the story, right? I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah, you know, but tell me what you guys did. I want to know what standard you guys did it to. And after 40 years of preaching that shit, we still don't see the industry stepping up and saying, okay, yeah, well, the building's operating as it was intended. Well, to what commissioning standard? You know, it's comfortable. Well, to what standard? Was it ASHRAE 55? You know, tell me, like, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't commission to a commissioning standard, though. You commission to what, you know, the standard. I hate to say it, but I'm going to go back to the ASHRAE Guideline 0, right? The owner's project requirements. So in that case, that is your kind of roadmap, right? You need to understand, yes, what ventilation standard are you using? What, you know, energy codes are you referring to and things. And so, I agree with you. It should be in there. But it is really hard. I mean, again, I'm going back to like the procurement side. When you're going out to bid and I'm competing against others, if the RFP sucks and it doesn't give the information that you need for the level of commissioning that they want, then it's crazy. It's all out there. Nobody knows what they're buying. In fact, usually when the RFP is still pretty good, you don't know what you're buying. Yeah. Yes, that's been the biggest struggle, from the certification to, you know, commissioning, like we talked about at the beginning. You can just do it on the mechanical systems. You could do it on the whole building side. And so what are you getting? What standards are you using? I will tell you, it's on the list. It's on the list to try to qualify, because again, I am one of those people that gets kind of obsessed with the details and what are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? And I agree. We have to kind of, you know, hone in and kind of narrow the playing field a little.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you. Anyone who's doing what you're doing, like an association leading it, you're constrained by two things: money and the fact that everyone there is a volunteer, right?
Yep.
That's the problem. Because the way to handle this in the medium long term is you become the thought leaders of the industry. You write the books, you write the standards, you get them into the Corps of Engineers specs, you know, the 3-letter agency specs. And over time, the way ASHRAE have become a de facto thing, the BCA becomes the ASHRAE of commissioning. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
ASHRAE, for me, is a lobbying group. People don't understand what ASHRAE is. There's a reason that office is in Washington, right? They're a K Street lobby group, but they just got, big brains.
Correct. I mean, just like the ACEC, for those of you who know the Association Engineering, it's very similar. And so, all the advocacy that we're doing is with 4 staff and a bunch of volunteers. So you're exactly right. Wow. Exactly right.
So, then the argument, the business side says, well, if you merge, you'd have more resources. But I don't know. I think one of the tactics I really think the BCA got right is going out and running with the qualification. So I coach in a few engineers in it's a side hustle of mine. I coach people. So there's kind of senior British commission engineers I'm dealing with in UAE. So I said, why don't you get a US certification? So obviously not ASHRAE. 2 days in the classroom is not enough. So I pointed them to ACG because that's where I was, right? But they're in the business of getting you to get the firm in, right? Correct. So for an individual, it's like $2,500. And then when I was speaking to you not long after that advice, I realized BCA do a qualification because the addressable market for individual qualifications, for standard zone, it's valuable. The addressable market is huge, right?
And by the way, you could carry it with you on the CCP and the ACP. That goes with the individual. It does not travel with the company. So, I'm not advocating for anyone to leave their company, but should they, right? They can keep the certification, which is the way it should be, right? Because it's yours.
So your relationship is with the individual, and I think that's differentiating. That's powerful, and there's got to be a way to monetize that a little bit better as well. But I think that is something the BCA should pound hard because no one knows. I mean, arguably, I'm supposed to know what's going on in this industry. That was news to me, right?
It all goes back to the visibility. And what's really interesting and the things that we're doing now, which, again, don't get all the same kind of notoriety as others, is we're really investing in our student and our presence in colleges.
Yes.
And so, it's funny. I did a presentation at the BCA conference. It was in St. Louis, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm sorry, can I tell you a real quick story?
Yeah, go for it.
So this was one of those, it was not a standard, like in front of the room and giving a speech to 100 people. It was right around the time of like the football season starting and everyone was doing their fantasy football drafts, right? So I said, let's do a fantasy commissioning draft. And here are the projects that we have. So everybody has $10 and you have, a 50-year, experienced commissioning provider for $6. You have a new kid out of school for $1.50. You have a 5-year, electrical engineer for $3, whatever it is, right? Because you can't just hire whoever you want. It has to come out of some budget or whatever it is. So I don't remember the exact numbers, right? But the intent was everyone went in there before we started that with the understanding that you only experienced people could do commissioning. That's it. You had to have, 30 years of experience, which, by the way, is the same thing for your accountant or your doctor or your dentist, right? Do you want a dentist that just came out of school? Of course not. It's a silly thing to say for commissioning providers because it's all the same, right? You have to start somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, we left the whole fantasy draft with people saying like, you know what? Maybe if it's a residential building with a lot of repetitive, heat pumps or fan coil units, then you know what? The experienced person shows up the first few days and we can kind of do a lot of the repetitive stuff because, it's a good opportunity to learn. And maybe in a data center, maybe it doesn't work, but you need the two, mid-range people or whatever it ends up being. So the thought was very different. And so that was years ago. Fast forward, it still hadn't caught on at a lot of the colleges and universities, and the students, they're still coming in trying to be, engineers or do something else. But right now we have a bunch of colleges from around the country that have actual commissioning programs and have commissioning instructors. One of them being, I'll give credit to the University of Arizona, and one of our members is working there who's doing a great job. That the University of Wisconsin-Madison obviously has some programs as well. So we're seeing a lot of movement on that. And that's really exciting also for me because now it's a real career choice. right? So you're leaving knowing that commissioning is a career versus me leaving 20 years ago saying, okay, I have a mechanical engineering degree. Now, what the heck am I going to do with that? I could go different ways. So that to me is really exciting. And the BCA is kind of trying to push all of that student engagement as much as we can right now.
Yeah, so I love that idea. Because it's like, it's like a menu at a restaurant, right? Unless it's on the menu, you don't even know about it. And now the fact that you got it into the college curriculums, university curriculums, people now know about it. And it's important. Like, what's that all about? I love that.
Yep.
Actually, that uni, I mean, most people wear the University of Wisconsin one, but the University of Arizona one, I wasn't aware of that. Again, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, right? That's what I tell people who pay me. So that's a great, talk about legitimacy in one bolt, right? If that is a program at a university, immediately it's got kudos, right? And if you get the right people in it, it can become a research thing. It can become a promotional thing. Dude.
Yeah.
Another great secret. We've got to unsurface these secrets and get them out there.
Trying to think of what else.
Well, Adam, we had, who was it on? I think it was Professor Liam O'Brien and from University of Carleton, and they had their students. I don't remember what year of students it was, but they go and they recommission the campuses. So every year when there's a new group of students, and over years they've had incremental reductions on the energy, which is a result of the students learning about building systems. And what a win-win, right?
Is that child labor laws, though? Is that?
Because kids trying to pay off their student loans.
More angry young men, angry young women.
Yeah,
but that's a living lab situation, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Here's the fundamentals. Here's the professor or teacher who's teaching you. And by the way, we're going to put this into practice because that's one of my fundamental problems with university courses. It's too academic and not enough practitioner. There's a mix in there that's right? Yeah. And BCA could be, with certainly University of Arizona, could be part of that, right? Could be part of that mix.
Yeah, I mean, I do truly consider myself lucky for finding this this profession so early because I didn't even know it existed. I wish I did, but you're right. I mean, when I went to school and there was a couple of labs here and there, but otherwise, I didn't know what I was setting myself up for at the time. Yeah.
I mean, you're like me. You stumbled into this field, right, by complete accident.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing. So if you send me a link to the Uni of Arizona stuff, I'll make sure it's in the show notes so people know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Arizona University. It's an awesome educational facility unit. It's just an institute. And when I got healthyheating.com, the website. We started that in 2002, I think it was, and there was Professor Shetzley from Arizona State University. He had a student that had a whole thing on indoor environmental quality, and it just spoke to me. And I remember, and Shetzley was a member of one of our technical committees, and I said to him, you know what, we want to start a website that's on IEQ. How does that affect people's productivity, learning, health, all that kinds of stuff? Mm-hmm. But you have a student that just put a bunch of stuff up. Can I borrow it? And he says, absolutely, you can borrow it. That became the DNA for our website. And here we are now, 2001. And I don't know I lost track of our data. I don't know how many new visitors we get a month, but it's tens of thousands that we've touched. Yeah. And it was because of Arizona State University. Great institute. Yeah.
So at the BCA, is everyone upbeat? Because I was involved in starting the Commissioning Specialist Association in the UK. And we went through these waves of utter fatigue and despair. Then we were all super upbeat. And then it was like, oh God, again, you know what I mean? Is it like that at BCA? How's the mood?
How's the mood? No one's ever asked me that. These are the hard-hitting questions that everyone wants to know.
What beer do you drink?
Yeah. No. Next time I'm going to be 3 beers in, like you told me I should.
Yeah. Totally.
I got to tell you, especially with the new members we've had, and we're talking about some of the retention and stuff, I think it's never been a better time. And I'm not just saying that for marketing, kudos or whatever. But especially last year and this year, we've had a real focus on succession planning. and who's coming next. And no longer, I mean, it's 2021 regardless. So we're working as well as everyone else on some of the diversity and inclusion measures, because we absolutely feel that we're doing okay, but there's still a lot of work to be done, 100%, right? So we're working on that. But from like the succession planning, it's no longer, I know it's a volunteer organization, but it's no longer like, I mean, this is how I got involved. Hey, Ryan, what are you doing for the next 30 years? So, and then, and then I started getting involved. Exactly. Look at me now. I wear these shirts all the time. No, but now we're truly trying to do and run this like a real organization that we get paid to do in our regular day-to-day work, which is find the people that excel at certain things. And there's some that excel more on the technical side, some that excel more on the communication side and stuff. And so we're trying to put people in positions that really benefit, who they are and their successes and stuff. And so I think, I don't know, I think we're doing okay this year. I think we're going to do great, in 5 years also, because of all the work that we're putting in, all the groundwork, we're laying the seeds and stuff. And so, I mean, I don't give ourselves enough credit now. We're doing great this year with all the stuff with the students, like you're talking, the training, the new members and stuff, the visibility. But yeah, I think it, like I said at the beginning, it's like a whole cycle of events here. It's all about people. I say it all the time, like everything. I don't know. Everything in life is about people, right? Your relationships at home. And that's why COVID is so impactful to everybody, because we're talking on these screens. But I think with that and what's going on with the BCA and pulling people and trying to advocate for the strongest people, whether they're here for 5 years or 50 years, is no longer like, the Lifetime Achievement Award. Now you become president. And I'm, I guess, living proof on that. Right. And so we're trying to put people in positions to succeed. And we have some amazing people from around the country and Canada and internationally. We have to push our international side a little more, but our Canadian members are killing it right now. They are all over every committee. I'm telling you, they were all over it. Our conference this year, God willing, is scheduled for October in Toronto. It'll be our first international conference, so we can't wait. And the Canadian, all of our Canadian chapters, or all two of them, the West and the East, they are, super excited to be the host country. So, no, I think honestly, everything right now is going super effective.
Wow. Well, you know what? I mean, for having the conference in Toronto, as Adam and I know, the currency exchange means you can find a quarter on the floor in New York, and that'll pay for your airfare.
Yes, or a couple of Labats.
Pick up those dimes and nickels and quarters, people. You can come to Canada for free.
Now, I think you're right. The BCA they do differentiate themselves well, right? But, it's sometimes the best kept secret. Like the qualification route for individuals is a great one. I think you could also be way, way more powerful on the international stage with the right, because now the barriers are down, using the internet to transmit your message. It's a low cost barrier now, right?
So, what's interesting, I spoke to Thomas Stunkel, I think his name is, from Germany. Yeah. And so he's from the DACH countries, DACH. And those countries never associated to the Building Commissioning Association because of the word building.
Yes.
And I thought that was so interesting, because they don't have buildings like we have buildings, but they do. It's just not kind of the high-rise commercial office, right? So a petrochemical plant isn't necessarily a building in their minds. They're just doing commissioning. So it was almost a surprise. Well, it was a surprise to me, but it was almost a difficult conversation to say process is process, engineering is engineering. The cube that holds the petrochemical plant is considered a building in my mind, right? So there's a lot of, if not a lot of synergies, all the synergies there. So like anything else, and we've been saying this forever, it's all about education and visibility and trying to, coordinate everybody's mindset to kind of be on the same page.
It might be hard to merge with other associations in the US for various sort of like political reasons, but it might be actually easier to merge with some international associations, because, the novel nature of an approach like that, would really sort of push a lot of political shit down the drain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I really want to see one commissioning association just leap ahead and just get this stuff sorted out. And the BCA at the moment is probably the best candidate for that, in my opinion. I'm not saying that because you're here, but it's the truth. You know, you got the scale. Have you got any numbers to hand? It might be an unfair question. Have you got any like membership numbers you can tell us? How big?
At last check, I think we were in the 1,200 range, something like that. Individual members, and then there's companies and stuff associated with that. I don't have the breakdown, but obviously the vast majority is in America and Canada, and then we have quite a few international.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work internationally. There's a real appetite for what you're doing, but a lot of people don't know about it, quite frankly.
Right.
So I think internationally there's a lot of opportunity for you, but we can do this offline, a bit of a brainstorm maybe. But I get a bit excited about stuff like this because there's such with some of a few good easy steps, it could change things for the BCA. Do you know what I mean? Are
you a broker?
I wish.
You trying to broker a deal? Well, no. Listen,
I'm a gun for hire. Is what I am.
Yes, we could take the conversation offline at a minimum. So I like the idea of kind of partnering because another reason we are so strong is because of the chapters. Those are the organizations you're referring to don't have chapters. And so chapters could be great. They could also be horrible if it goes wrong, meaning like that is where the action is happening. And the reason why the chapters are so effective for the BCA is because, like I mentioned earlier, commissioning is kind of parochial. Like it's different in the Northeast than it is in the Southeast and Southwest and the center of the country and even in Canada to a certain extent. So the chapters are nice because you can, coordinate with other people who are kind of doing the same thing as you, if it's slightly different on the different coasts and stuff. So we need chapters internationally. We have chapters in the United States and Canada. We have, like I said, international community, but if it's another organization that's helpful in that getting that chapter mentality there, then we'd be all for it. So
I'll just give you a top tip as a Brit who's now a British North American, right? When you say the word chapter to anyone in Britain or Europe, they think of Hell's Angels. That's why there's no chapters outside of North America. True story. You've got to call it something else. Big tip, right?
All right. Thanks for
everyone goes Sons of Anarchy on you. We are chapters. I'm Sons of Anarchy. Now give my.
I was a big fan.
I'm fucking huge fan. So just one other little bitch thing for me that I think the BCA could deal with. So integrated systems testing. So the big thing culturally for me is the difference between North American approach to commissioning and say other parts of the world is where I was trained, we were taught to think in systems. And a lot of that is to do with things like there's a lot of hydronic systems, whereas in the US and Canada, the supply chain is geared to let's get a air handling unit on the roof, right? Get that rooftop unit on, start that sucker up, right? So there's a culture of what I would call equipment-based approach in North America versus a systems-based approach elsewhere. But now we have, which was all good and dandy up until the 80s, right? Then when control systems went digital and complexity really started creeping in and the interdependency of the systems, then you get onto what I call integrated systems testing, IST. Now, my big moan at the moment is in the UK and North America, there's one in North America, I'll come to that. There are no commissioning associations and no books talk about integrated systems testing, right? I found one. The NFPA do this book called Integrated Life Safety Systems Testing. It's a combination of NFP 3 and 4, right? And it's a how-to, it's a practitioner's guide. It's freaking awesome. I have a theory why no one knows about it, because if you actually did use that book, you'd have to do the job properly and no one could afford that. But again, this is an opportunity for any association who wants to be a thought leader here. Solve that problem. Set the standard for integrated systems testing.
It's it's an interesting topic because the BCA doesn't set the tone on even the equipment level testing, right? I mean, I call it, but that's intentional, Adam. And
is it?
so, yeah, because I call it where I am functional performance testing. Someone else calls it, functional testing or whatever it is. And then what really muddies the waters, as you know, is there's levels in some cases, but no one knows what levels they're using, right? Level 1 or level 0, depending on which association you're talking about, right, could be just the initial walkthrough and punch list versus level 3 to some is pre-functional. It's 2 for startup for others and vice versa. And then when you get to like level 5, what they call it, integrated system testing. But that's how the natural progression needs to be. Right. In my opinion, commissioning happens in many different stages. And by the way, all those stages, all those levels are way after everything else you're doing. Right. Yeah. Like the design review and all the meetings and the plans and the spec writing and all that other stuff. And then when you get to the point of actually testing, there's all those different components. And so what the BCA is doing, and I can't talk about anyone else just because I don't know, is talking about the best practices while you're doing those things, but it's not telling you exactly how to do it because that's not our job. That's really, the member's job.
If you're not doing that, so I do data center work. So in the absence of leadership role on that, by not just being on BCA, just could be anyone, right?
Right.
People like Amazon, they create their own.
Right.
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 I think it should be for someone like the BCA to really clarify that, because it takes the he said, she said out of it, right? This is what functional performance testing is. This is what integrated system performance testing is. What startup is, and then it tones down the noise and chaos. Because if you're not doing it, clients are going to do it, and clients are going to do it differently. So then you wind up. If I did a AWS job, I'm looking at, I know what they want compared to what Facebook want, compared to what someone else wants, right?
Right. But then you might be pricing yourself out to, like a McDonald's,
Yeah.
So that's also part of the problem, right? Because I agree with you. AWS and some of these other kind of, software tech companies are much different. They're the new, what was the banks of the 90s and stuff, right? Where they had their own criteria, right? All the big banks, you can name them. So now it's all the Facebooks, Amazons, et cetera, are running that too. But it's different, to be quite honest. AWS, when you're talking about the like robotics distribution centers, are much different than the Amazon office space that we see going up also. So I hear you. I just don't know if it's really practical because the level is so different, right? Like I do a lot of jobs that are strict energy code, and they tell me, do you really have to do all this stuff? Like, do you really need to, check the point to point and look at it at the front end?
Yes, is the answer to that.
Well, no, I probably don't for energy code. It doesn't say it. It's not prescriptive, so that's kind of the problem. Like, and if we're writing that, and that we may be doing a disservice to our members, especially if you're saying always do this, and they're losing every single job to someone who's a quarter of the price.
So you've got to get into specs.
Yeah.
That's what we did. I mean, I'm having a real bitch session here just because you're here and I can, and it's unfair, but you're a big boy.
You should share your opinions more. That's something that I could see that you're very scared of doing.
And this is a good place to segue into sort of our quick answer, because we're going to be conscious of your time, Ryan.
Yeah.
The question I have for you is that 25 years in the future, you're looking back, and the architectural engineering teams now demand a member of the BCA on the design team. How did you get there?
Oh, I like that.
Oh, how did we get there? Yeah. Can I change that up a little?
Sure.
Can I say that in 25 years, I want the building commissioning providers hiring the architects and engineers?
Oh, I love that.
Boom.
Is that big? I mean, listen, if you look at the way commissioning is structured and the best practices of everything, the building commissioning provider is the first person the client should hire, bar none. Like that. That's it. and then that's how it's written. And then that's what drives all the other kind of decisions that you're going to make on the project.
Yep.
And so how often do you find, and now USGBC is going to audit every one of my projects. How often do you find that you're writing the owner's project requirements after the project has already essentially, been designed? I swear to God, I've never done that. If this is recorded, but no, you're asked to, and to be fully transparent, there are many occasions where I say, no, can't do it, right? Too far gone, hire someone else, not going to do it. But it's happening. So I'd like to say, if I do anything in this industry and I'm successful at what I'm doing, starting with the students, like we talked about, a little while ago, starting the universities, making the career choice of choice. People going into this industry really, pounding their chest. I've been saying, especially with COVID, we should be wearing, capes on our around our necks, right? We're the superheroes, getting everyone back into these buildings, going in and making sure all the indoor air quality is up to, even forget about increasing the indoor air quality, but just getting it to the place that it should have been, right? So that's what I'd like to see in the future. I'd like to see in the future, the commission provider being not as a commodity based kind of service, but someone that's, shoulder to shoulder with the client, totally bought in, everyone's on board, and then kind of, not taking over the design or the architecture or anything like that, but just being part of all the decisions so that, the building is operating, for the next 50 years.
I think
I love that. Yeah.
Owners sort of like subject matter expert advisor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of them mean well, but they're finance guys. They didn't get into developing buildings that, for the engineering stuff. It's just the reality, right? So we need to just be on our game. Yeah.
Okay. So my quick fire question is this: we're in a period of cultural change, I'd say, and part of that change is about getting more women into the workforce. Now, our industry is not great at attracting women. No, I'm not a fan of like pushing people into things they don't want to go. It's about our industry being more attractive as a career choice, right? So how do you think we could do that for commissioning? Because commissioning is quite a bro space, to be honest.
Yeah, if you asked me 5 years ago, my answer probably would have been different. And I thought 5 years ago that there just weren't, women and people of color and just other kind of minorities available. And I've come to know that that's completely false. Right. That the people, leaving universities and stuff, it's close to 50-50, if not more on the female side, actually, in engineering. So what are we doing wrong? And so we have to ask questions. And I've asked this, and I've posed the challenge again to the BCA to say, we can't just look in the same places and expect different results, right? We have to be strategic about where we're drawing in members from, and even what we're saying the words. So it's interesting. We have a really strong international board of directors. It's not quite 50-50 male female, but it's close. And so as part of some of the information that we release, we ask a variety of people to read it and just read the words, and words matter, and we're not alone in this, right? And so there's some cases where things that were written by predominantly historically, male driven audiences was different from how a female would read it. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have all the answers, but the reality is we're aware of it and trying to make changes. And, I'm just really excited just from the standpoint, I can tell you that our IBOT is, close to 50-50 male female. And that's a huge change from where we were just a few short years ago.
Yeah, good to hear. Okay, well, look, thank you very much for coming on and putting up with my moans about the industry, because obviously you were going to fix it for me. That's what I thought. And good. Thanks for coming on. Have you got any pluggables you want to plug?
Sorry, what was that?
Any pluggables? Anything you want to plug? So I'll put the links to JB&B website, the BCA. If you can send me the link for Arizona University and what's going on there, and we'll put all that out. And wish you the best. I love what you're doing. I love what the BCA are doing. Keep on at it, man.
Yes, no, thank you. Just for the time. I mean, that's all the plug I need. You'll put the links up, but I'm really proud of this organization and who we are and where we've been and where we're going. And so, if anyone has any questions on either certification, how to become a member, just the training, just want to have a beer with me in Toronto, by all means, reach out. And, one thing we didn't get to talk about was stair press. And I'll talk to you an hour for stair press next time if you want to invite me back.
The Edifice Complex will continue in just a moment.
Adam, it's time to thank some people who are on our side. Blue Rhythm Commissioning Software.
Blue Rhythm is the commissioning software I've been looking for. Most projects I consult on suffer from poor information and document management. Frankly, it's just chaos out there. Blue Rhythm removes this chaos. It is a secure, always available cloud solution designed to work on any computer, tablet, or smartphone. Their Android and iOS apps allow seamless transition between online and offline work. But what I like most about Blue Rhythm is their painless and fast onboarding process. Our team will bring all your existing forms and checklists into Blue Rhythm for you, or you can use or adapt their pre-built, pre-functional and functional performance test sheet templates. But it's more than that. It enables collaboration, automation, and easy planning and project management for all your projects. Blue Rhythm provides amazing support from a team that really understands your industry. To find out more, go to bluerhythm.com or call country code +1 612 460 8305. Also, you can hear from Blue Rhythm President Andy Martin on episode 26 of the Edifice Complex podcast. Robert, we there yet? I'm bored.
Adam, I know it's hard to believe, but the future has finally arrived in Canada.
How's that then?
Well, smart remote building and equipment management is now available from SensorSuite.
Go on.
SensorSuite, yep, they're an innovator in smart building technology. We like them. They can monitor, control, and optimize anything in your building, saving you time and energy.
You mean SensorSuite are moving Canadian buildings into the 21st century?
Yeah, I know, another hard thing to believe, but they're doing it, and they're saving owners money with efficiency gains.
Okay, I'm in. How do I find out more?
Got to go to sensorsuite.com or call 1-855-773-6767. And also check out the July 2020 episode of the Edifice Complex podcast and listen to SensorSuite CEO Glenn Spry.
And now, back to the show.
How did you meet Ryan, by the way? And you never told me that story.
Well, he's been, because we're both in the commissioning industry, I'm sort of aware of him. I'm always aware of who's running the commissioning associations, but also my daughter, when she first graduated with her engineering degree, she did a year and a half at JB&B in Ryan's office. Now, that's not how I know Ryan. She was in another Ryan's team there. She was in the design team. She worked on the LaGuardia airport project before she got into aerospace. So it was interesting, but I've been aware of Ryan because one, he was there and I knew because he ran the commissioning department there. So I was aware of that. When my daughter was working there, I didn't like push myself into anything, but I was aware of him then. And then when he became president of the BCA, that's quite a kudos. That's a high kudos thing because he's got to do his day job. He's got to run his team. So he runs the field team. So the way JB&B do it, they have all their field services in one team led by Ryan. So that's not just commissioning, that's like energy consulting, dilapidation surveys, everything, just general field engineering. He runs all that. And he's president of the BCA, which is I've been in some of them committees. It's just exhausting, committee work, it's exhausting. And you always walk out with a lot of stuff. You wind up being voluntold or volunteered for something, right?
Totally, yeah.
And you wind up,
that's what I mean when you look back at our list of people that we've interviewed and the people we have coming up, all high achievers, but the people that they're passionate. I love the passion, for what they're doing. Two things that I really loved about a couple of statements he made. One had to do with I think it was the mission of the association, a built environment worth inheriting.
Yes, I love that. I wrote that down as soon as he said that.
Incredibly powerful statement. If you ever wanted to create a guiding light, so that sort of, the lighthouse for, in this case, their association, a built environment worth inheriting. Wow, that's
See, all great mission statements are outcome based, right? With no time.
Yeah, I love that. So love that much. And then I love the way he reframed my question.
Yeah, that was great.
That was brilliant. So
that was mic drop, Ryan.
Totally mic drop. Absolutely. So, I asked him, I said, well, 25 years from now, that there's a building commissioning, a member of BCA on the design team, how did that happen? And he reframed it, well, a BCA member should be working on the team, hiring the architects and the engineers.
Yeah.
That was awesome because, and he's absolutely right. I mean, and you and I know, and anybody that's listened to to this podcast, if you've got any experience at all, that on the back end of every project is where all the work really gets done. I mean, it's, you're trying to make this thing perform. It's like an orchestra. Like you're sitting there with a sheet of music and you need to get everybody to play at the appropriate place at the appropriate time, the rhythms, all of this kinds of stuff. You know what? If you hire somebody at the beginning, before it even gets started, to write that music, write the sheet music, and then you're involved at the start, it's huge.
Yeah, that was really well done the way you reframed that and handled that question, actually. That's why he's the president, right?
Yeah,
totally. That was a high class maneuver. That tells you, if I was his employer, that would tell me I could put Ryan in any room and know everything's going to be good, right? Yeah. And that's
kind of like you had said this before a couple of times. And I'll never forget about when you look at the Navy SEALs or whoever, people who are completely capable of being parachuted into an area and naked, no money, and before you know it, they're running the place.
That's the SES saying. I want someone I could parachute naked into a town. By lunchtime, they're clothed and fed, and by the evening, they're running everything. Ryan's one of them people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a great example of someone. If you was a young graduate, you want to model yourself on someone's career, you could do a lot worse than modeling yourself on someone like Ryan.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He made another statement, which I totally agree with, and that is that commissioned agents are superheroes in this time that we're in, the pandemic, getting buildings ready for people to come back in.
Yeah.
People don't understand that, when you take a high-rise building, an office tower or a school or a hospital, whatever, as I say, buildings that are unoccupied. So let's just say high rises, for example, an office where you're bringing people back in. What you have to do to commission that building to make sure it's safe, and people need to understand this as well as that engineers, our ethical requirements are the number one ethical requirement is the health and safety of the public, right? So as soon as they step in through the front doors, there are responsibility. And in the pandemic that we have here right now, where you're talking about a pathogen that kills, these people are taking on huge responsibilities, making sure that the building is safe to come back in. And I agree with them. They are some superheroes. People that are doing work for free or for low cost, or signing up, contracts on large scales with understanding that this is done because we're trying to save people's lives or prevent people from getting sick. They're not getting enough credit. Society doesn't give them the credit that they deserve.
Because it's a hands-on task as well. It's not something you can phone in, right?
You can't. Right? You're not calling a friend or polling the audience on this. You're getting in there and you're looking at what is there, what it's supposed to do, and if you can get it to what it's supposed to do, is it adequate enough given the risk assessments that we have right now?
Buildings are like super tankers. You can't turn them off and stop them, right? They got to run. They got to be maintained, even when they're completely empty.
Yeah, totally.
So
the other thing I loved, getting that into the colleges, and you picked up on that right away in terms of Arizona State University. That's
a straight up jiu-jitsu move. That is pretty powerful. There's, if you showered a lot of money at someone like the BCA, that would be their move. Into universities, get courses going, get some books written, become the standard. And it's hard to do on a shoestring when you've got constraints. But University of Arizona, got to be worse places to go, right, for 4 years.
No shit. Yeah.
Man.
I don't know, take a spot anywhere in northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, listen, you also said something that I totally believe. We've actually talked about it before, and that is the difference between certification and qualifications.
Yeah, that is big.
People need to understand that.
Yeah, people do not get that. And I think that's another gangster move by the BCA, really going down that avenue of qualification. That is a good move because, again, the addressable market is huge, really.
Yeah.
It's just
you think about your other word, like, skill stack.
Yeah.
Right. And qualifications versus certification. So you could have a real short skill stack, right? Take a course, write an exam and get certified, but not know what the F you're doing.
Yeah.
Or you can have a real tall skill stack and be completely qualified and not certified.
Exactly. And trouble is procurement do not know how to distinguish between them two things. That is the problem, right? Because for them, a brick is a brick is a brick is a brick, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's the problem with procuring professional services. Right? It's hard, man. It's a hot mess, but that's why we have a job, which is good.
Also talked about data. If you're going to collect the data, use the data. Don't let it sit in some spreadsheet and wither away. Well, of course, it won't do that. But
that data is going to become very valuable later on. People are going to start fighting over that data. But metaphorically, no, it's mine, because they're going to start selling it to each other in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a move.
Yeah, totally. Okay, man, listen, I keep saying it, and because I mean it. We've been really lucky to have the people that we get on. We have incredible minds from all segments, and we have some episodes coming up that are going to be outstanding. And so to our listeners, thank you for listening, as always, and stay tuned because we got some great stuff coming up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, man. Have a good one. See you next time.
All right, man. Cheers.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Edifice Complex podcast with Adam Muggleton and Robert Bean. To access show notes for this episode, visit edificecomplexpodcast.com. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. See you next time.